I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're exploring the psychological and cultural dynamics behind a powerful book. It is called The Machismo and Marianismo Tango, a groundbreaking study by Dr. David Sequeira. It is a provocative book that examines two deeply rooted gender ideals in Hispanic culture, Machismo and Marianismo, and the trauma they often produce, particularly for women living under these cultural expectations. If you're ready for an honest look at tradition, gender roles, and healing from generational pain, this is a book you won't want to miss. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Bookside Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, sir. Talk to us a little bit about why you decided to explore the topics of Machismo and Marianismo.
I was a missionary in Brazil, and I noticed that there was a red light district 6 kilometers from the town, and practically every man went there to see the girls. And the wife and the daughters and sons just accepted that as it was normal. It was very strange for me. And when I came to the United States to do my doctorate, there was only one study done about machismo. And so I decided to write my dissertation on machismo and how machismo is related to alcoholism among the Hispanics. But my director was from Puerto Rico, and she didn't like some of the things I wrote and refused to sign my dissertation. I had to write a, a document, sign a document saying that I will not print my dissertation. And so for 20 years, I didn't do that. I didn't. And then I added Marianismo. Just like men try to be machistas, women want to imitate the Virgin Mary. And what was her life? Life of sorrow, pain, humble, and they think that they have to be like that. And I tell them, we had one, that is more than enough. We don't need to have more.
Exactly.
And when I was treating the women, I saw that many of them had suffered physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And they were all suffering from PTSD and never been diagnosed. So I went to specialize in PTSD just to try to help them.
Amazing, amazing. So for people who aren't familiar with the terms, machismo, I think they hear more often, which is
Yes,
basically a very macho attitude, a hyper male attitude, perhaps.
exactly. You know,
Marianismo is acting like a Virgin Mary type, a very
yes,
withdrawn
imitating
woman.
her, that she is a humble, a servant. She's the last person in the family.
Basically there sometimes to take care of the aging parents and so forth, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I had a patient, and she was, I was treating her, and she was Marianista. And I told her, you don't need to be a Marianista, be a normal human being. And I taught her how she can do that. Before I saw her, her husband used to work at night and come home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he wanted her to be awake to give him a hot dinner. And I said, no, you don't need to do. You prepare the dinner, put it in the microwave, show him how to use the microwave, and you go to sleep.
Yeah.
He was mad at me because I had changed his wife.
Exactly.
She was no more Marianista and a slave.
Amazing. So these are very ingrained
Yes,
uh, gender roles in the Latin American society.
yes, please.
Yeah.
I had
What?
a patient, and I'd asked her to come to my group, Machismo and Marianismo group. And she said to me, Dr. Sequeira, I was born here in the United States. I don't have anything to do with that. And when she came to the group, she recognized that she has all the Marianista characteristics because from the DNA from her parents.
A lot of it is inherited, a lot of it is learned culturally, a lot of it is passed on from generation to generation, of course. Why do you think your dissertation was initially blocked from publication?
Because the dean of the faculty did not like about what I wrote about Marianismo.
Mm.
She said that was not right.
Hmm.
She didn't agree with me.
Well, that's
Although,
what academic discussion and free will and free thought and free debate supposed to be all about, to have differing thoughts, differing point of views, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
yes,
Amazing, amazing. Talk to us about how these ideals of Machismo and Marianismo contribute to PTSD and psychological trauma, particularly in women.
yes. Now, most of those women have suffered physically, emotionally, and sexually. For years, they have been suffering from that. And because of that abuse, they have suffered trauma. And the trauma causes the PTSD. And none of them have been diagnosed and treated for that. For example, I had a lady who came to me for therapy, and she says, Doctor, I get very angry at my children, two daughters, and then I feel guilty. Can you help me with that? When I took her history, I found out that she had been in three marriages, and all of them had treated her the same thing. She never learned from history, and so history repeated itself three times. And then I treated her for her PTSD, and her two daughters came to thank me that she doesn't get angry at them anymore.
Amazing, amazing. Well, that was great. You were able to help her, work with her. So many people do have patterns when it comes to relationships. They'll get out of a relationship and pick out someone who's nearly identical and not even
Exactly.
realize it, which is just mind-blowing from time to
If
time.
you don't
So
learn from history, history repeats itself.
exactly, you're bound to and determined to repeat it, no doubt.
Yes,
Infidelity is another component of machismo, and that can be
yes,
very destructive, of course, to relationships and to families. Talk to us about that emotional toll on families and how do we break that cycle? I mean, men who have that mindset feel they're entitled to it, right?
yeah. They think they are entitled to do that, and they can have as many wives as possible, many girlfriends as possible,
Yeah,
you know, and they deny that they are machistas.
yeah,
I have a patient, and he says, Doctor, I don't have those, uh, I'm not a macho. And I
yeah.
asked him, what type of car do you drive? And he smiled and he said, I don't have to go further
That's funny.
because,
Exactly,
because they all
exactly.
want huge cars, trucks.
Yes,
Sign of
exactly,
machismo. They have to look
exactly.
great.
So, how can Hispanic communities begin to heal from the cultural trauma from these ideals that are perpetrated on them?
Okay. I tell my patients that each one of us have three people in us: parent, adult, and a child. If you act like a parent, I'm going to act like a child. If you act like a child, I'm going to act like a parent. If you act like an adult, there is possibility I will act like an adult. Now, in a macho family, the man is the parent and the wife is the child,
Mm.
obeying him, doing his will. She has to provide sex, provide children, keep the house spotless, and prepare his meal and give him hot meals when he comes, even when he's drunk, and even when he comes after seeing another woman. So, what I tell them, see, in this country, you have equal rights like the man. And I teach them instead of biting the bait and acting like a child, that they can act like an adult.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't know how to deal with her because she's acting like an adult and he's trying to act like a parent. And
Hmm.
then slowly he's forced to act like an adult.
Wonderful. That's a great analogy. You're either going to be a parent, an adult, or a child in a relationship. A parent brings about a child brings about a parent, but if you're both adults, you'll be on an even playing field. I'd imagine it's easier for you working with women than working with men. I would think the men would be more resistant in giving up their lifestyles. Is that
Yes,
true?
yes. But slowly, slowly, things are changing. For example, I tell them, what is the most important thing when you're building a house? Is the foundation. And I tell them, we have a foundation too. And what is that? And they don't know. And I tell them, self esteem. And if you do not have strong self esteem, you're not capable of doing anything in life. I had a professor, PhD, and I gave him the same uh, assignment. He refused to do it. I said, okay, no problem. I continued doing my therapy. And each time he came, I said, this is happening to you because of low self esteem. This is happening to you because of low self esteem. And please don't blame your wife because your wife can't do anything to you unless you allow her to do that to you. And finally, he asked me to help him with his self esteem. Now, most of these machos, they think that they have a strong self esteem and they don't want to work on their self esteem.
The truth is, they have a very fragile self-esteem, so they need
Yes,
constant approval, constant praise, constant catering to in order to maintain the facade of being this big macho man.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, in a Hispanic family, uh, the man after work goes to the cantina to drink and he'll come home late. He's never at home to take care of the kids. And so the child is accustomed to be with women, sisters, aunts, and he absorbs their characteristics. And then when becomes 18, then they tell him, now you have to be a man. He's very, inside, he's very unstable, and he has to put this facade of being strong.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the big cars come, the flashy clothes come,
Yes,
the obnoxious behaviors at time come as well. Wonderful book, so insightful. It is called The Machismo and Marianismo Tango. It is a groundbreaking book that examines two deeply rooted gender ideals in Hispanic culture, Machismo and Marianismo, and the trauma they often produce, particularly for
yes.
women living under these cultural expectations. If you're ready for an honest look at tradition, gender roles, and healing from generational pain, this is a book you won't want to miss. The links are below this interview. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
You're most welcome, and thank you very much.
I appreciate your insight and your wisdom. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time until next time on
Yes.
Spotlight.